Let's talk about something we all know, something we've all lived with, the report card. That classic ABCDF grading system. It feels like it's just always been there, right? As natural as the alphabet itself. But what if I told you its history is this wild, kind of secret story from the industrial age? A story we were never really supposed to know. Okay, let's get into it.
And it all kicks off with this one simple question. I bet you've wondered about it yourself. Why in the world is there no E in the AF grading system? It just jumps right over it. Well, it turns out the answer isn't just some fun fact for trivia night. Nope, it's the key that unlocks the entire reason we have the grades we do today.
So let's put on our detective hats and start with that missing letter. Seriously, think of this as a mystery. And the clues? They're going to lead us to a system that was built for a world that looks, well, nothing like ours.
And here it is, the big twist, right at the beginning. The A through S grading system, it was never really about teaching, not its main goal anyway. It was actually an administrative tool, an invention of the industrial age, pure and simple, designed to fix one very, very specific problem. Okay, so to really get what that problem was, we've got to jump in a time machine. We're going back to an era before letter grades even existed. This was a time when this brand new idea, mass education, was starting to take off. And it was causing a total administrative nightmare on a scale nobody had ever seen before. And wow, the difference is just night and day. See, before all the factories, education was really just for the elite. You take a place like Yale back in 1785, they were using these fancy Latin ranks like optimi, which just means the best, to sort a handful of gentlemen. It was all about quality, very subjective. But then, boom, the Industrial Revolution hits, schooling becomes mandatory, and suddenly you've got millions of students. You just can't write a long, thoughtful report on every kid. No way. You need something fast, something simple, something standard to sort them all out. Basically, to sort a future workforce. And you know what's crazy? Even the early reformers, guys like Horace Mann, they saw the writing on the wall. We're talking way back in 1846, he was already warning people that this whole obsession with standardized reports, it could make students stop caring about learning and start caring only about their rank. He even called it a moral hazard. I mean, that's a warning from over 175 years ago that sounds like it could have been written yesterday, right? So this desperate need for efficiency, it led to this really powerful idea, a metaphor that would basically define American schools for the next 100 years, and honestly, even today. And that idea was the school as a factory.
And in this model, the logic is, well, it's brutally simple. The school is the factory. The students, they're the raw materials that come in one door and eventually become finished products out the other. And grades? Grades are the quality control stamp. They're what you slap on the product at the very end of the assembly line to say, yep, this one meets the specs. The whole point wasn't about helping each kid grow. It was about creating a standardized output for a standardized economy. Now, to get this factory model to actually work, you have to standardize everything. So, step one, standardize time. That's where we get the Carnegie unit. 120 hours of just sitting in a seat equals 1 credit. Step two, standardize the content so everyone gets the same textbooks. And then the final, most important piece of the puzzle, standardize the quality check. And that's where the AF letter grade fits in perfectly. It's the simple, clean metric for the whole educational assembly line. But, and this is a huge but, here's the catch. This quality control check, it wasn't just about how much you knew. It created this thing that experts call the omnibus grade. Think of it as one single letter that just mashes everything together, not just what you learned, but also all those behaviors that make a good factory worker. Were you on time? Were you obedient? Was your work neat? And that's exactly why. Even now, our grades often measure how well we follow the rules, just as much as they measure how much we've actually learned.
And all of this, it brings us right back to our original mystery. Because now, with this whole school as a factory mindset locked in, we can finally crack the case of the missing E. We can see why F wasn't just some random choice. It was a totally necessary administrative fix.
All right, so the story takes us to Mount Holyoke College back in 1897. These guys were real pioneers. They roll out one of the very first A through E grading systems. Simple enough, right? A for excellent and E for failure. But whoops, they hit a massive snag, like right away. Parents and students kept getting the report cards, seeing that E and thinking it stood for excellent or exemplary. You can see the problem. And this little story, it just perfectly sums up the logic of the whole system. For a factory, right, you need clear, simple, instant communication.
Any confusion is a total disaster for efficiency. So they needed an administrative fix, and fast. They needed a letter that screamed failure with zero ambiguity. E was just too confusing, but F? Nobody was going to mistake F for fantastic. It was a cold, calculated decision. It had nothing to do with pedagogy and everything to do with clean, error-free data. And just like that, mystery solved.
Okay, so now we know the secret origin story. We know where this whole system came from. Which leads us to the really big question. How well is this tool, this relic from the industrial age, actually serving us today, in the 21st century? It's time to grade the grade system itself. And honestly, the complaints about it are almost as old as the system itself. I mean, for a system that was supposed to be standardized, grades can be incredibly subjective, right? We all know that. They still often reward compliance more than real understanding. They're a massive source of stress and anxiety for students, and maybe worst of all, they can make students focus so much on getting the grade, that external reward, that they forget about the actual joy of learning something new. So today, there's a big push from a lot of educators for something different, a new model that's often called standards-based grading. And philosophy-wise, it is a complete 180. The old factory model, all about compliance, timeliness, sorting people out. This new model, it's all about mastering actual skills. Think about it. In the old system, an F is like a brand. It's punishment and it's permanent. In this new way of thinking, failure isn't the end. It's just a signal that you need to revise and keep growing. It's a huge shift, moving away from just being efficient for administrators and moving back towards, actually teaching. So that's where we are. We're left with this massive question. Our world today, it isn't run by factories that need identical, compliant workers anymore. Our world needs creativity, it needs collaboration, it needs people who can bounce back from failure. So if the AF grade was the perfect tool for the 19th century factory, what's the tool we need to build for the 21st century? Now that is a question worth spending some time on.